Board games, board games, it's what we're talking about. Board games, board games, I'm not gonna shout. Over to this side, this person name is Lewis, and our owning Gus from Green Crack Games. They've made a lot of games with a lot of names. We're going to talk about the act of self-publishing versus the fact that when you get other people coming over to say, hey, can you make my thing? Is that a totally different figurative drink? If you want to compare everything to drinks, you know.
Yeah.
Why not?
Why not? If you're thirsty.
Board games and publishing, it's what we're talking about. Board games and publishing, I'm not gonna shout. Hey! Wait.
Morning, Bears.
Morning, Lewis. It is lovely to see you. And morning, Alan. It's lovely to see you.
Hi, Alan.
And I am Bez, as you just mentioned. This is bedtime in some countries. We are blethering about board games, and today it is self-publishing versus publishing other folks' stuff. I tried to kind of be a bit more concise with this bit, but I felt like reducing the word count would reduce too much of the meaning.
It's a complex issue with a lot of facets, both psychological and social and moral and economic. So no need to abbreviate.
And hello, Xates. It is lovely to see you.
Hi, Zay.
And yeah, so I don't know why. I think, was it me who proposed this topic? Because this is something that you have experience with. Oh, and Alex, lovely to see you as well. Hey. And so now all the best moderators. Oh, this is lovely. Oh, hello, Chris. So a lot of people will have experience with this. I say a lot of people, but you know, most people don't actually even go far as designing a board game. Let's be honest, most people don't really go as far as calling themselves a board gamer.
It seems like a lot to us because we largely socialize among people who have done one of the three or want to.
And yet for the general population, it's like, whoa, you have more. Do you have more than 10 board games? Yes.
Yes, you make games. Are they like Monopoly?
Yes, they totally are, because they come in a box and they don't normally have dice, but normally there are cards. So yes, in that aspect, they're totally like Monopoly.
I usually go the opposite direction and I kind of lean forward in the cab and I go, no, you idiot. Nothing like Monopoly.
You don't
are
actually say that,
all films like Titanic? No. Well, depending on whether I think I can get away with it. I like to sass people sometimes.
To your closest friends, you would do this.
Yeah.
Oh, and yes, there sure are some people who don't board game all the time. Oh my gosh! But like, this isn't meant to be a show just for people who do board game all the time, although I appreciate that. So if you do board game all the time, you're more likely to be excited by this and to be more interested in the topic of the nuance of what's the difference between publishing our own stuff versus publishing other people's stuff.
And also, I think both of us have experience self-publishing or attempting to publish via other means, things other than board games. And I think there are similar things across the gamut. Have you made Flash games before?
Yeah, I have.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's a similar thing.
I guess so. Like, there's no mass production involved there. It's quite different.
No, but it's getting the idea out there and trying to find an audience.
Yeah,
really the core of it.
Okay, you know what's the closest thing? So I had Ryan Estrada, I think. It was last Sunday. Ryan Estrada's my old rival. Anyone who wants to check out that and check out what South Korea is like, and Ryan Estrada's amazing band book club, which it's somewhere in a pile there. My room's too messy, even though I know it's vaguely over there. But anyway, so Ryan Estrada was ages ago. They did a comic which was 72 pages in 72 hours. They were going to do a 96 page in 96 hours, but they didn't. So I did a 100-page thing. I was thinking, okay, how can I raise money for the Indian Ocean Stammy at the point? This was like 2005. Anyway, so I talked to Ryan Estrada. You were like, yeah, don't do print on demand. It's just like lots of work, and you actually don't end up with that much money. People don't really like. Just if you are trying to raise money, don't do it. Why not just charge people $1 to see it online? Which is what I ended up doing. And so even if it's digital distribution, because in this age of digital publishing, that's still a thing. Like I still have print and play editions of the L deck that you can buy online. I mean, right now it's half price. So until we're totally out of lockdown, until I feel confident. I mean, I know that in the UK we're kind of out of lockdown, but anyway. So yeah, for sure. Since 2005, digital publishing has exploded. I mean, it's
my
been.
dad does digital publishing, and
Are you
him
trying?
and he was this was never a thing that he didn't train for this. He just woke up one day and was like, I'm gonna do books now.
And like, there's a very narrow line, isn't there, between what is publishing and what is okay making a few copies, or when it's digital, what's even putting one copy up? Like, if you put one copy up on the Game Crafter and then someone buys it, is that published? If only one person has bought it and no one else buys it ever?
I think publishing is making available in one aspect or another, and it contains many things therein. But I think the challenges change and the benefits change wildly. Like you say, there are some ways of doing it where it will cost you more and make everyone involved, more miserable. but there are, the same emotions. It's like creating something, and then it's past the point of creating and the point of putting
Yeah.
something out there.
It's like, maybe it's at the point where you feel like, okay, I'm comfortable charging money for this. Maybe that's. But, we're jumping straight ahead into this. We're jumping into the definition. And like, yeah, awesome for you, Aquasulis, like trying to do some sheet music. Alex did like, I've heard some music from you, like sounds good. I don't know if any of this will be directly applicable, but hopefully it will be useful. But first of all, you know what we're going to do. We know what it's time for. It's time for a brilliant thing, brilliant thing. What's the little thing, which is brilliant.
Brilliant. My brilliant thing is I'm just going to say it, throw it out there. Exploring space, both inner and outer, together in peace forever. It is the end of a very long quote by Bill Hicks I've been thinking a lot about, because I've been exploring space in No Man's Sky with my friend Sam, who I've not spoken to in a long time, and that's been an enjoyable experience, just like floating about in the ether and finding things and working together as a team. And also just like the general concept that maybe we can dedicate ourselves to life is just a ride. That's the one. We can just dedicate ourselves to things that bring us joy and have meaning beyond the everyday drudgery and suffering.
I mean, I really like the poetry of this. So you've got your inner space that's like kind of mindfulness and appreciating what's going on in your own mind, and then the outer space. And to me, this would be the physical world around you, but you're also talking about the virtual space in No Man's Sky. And if we're locked, if we're meant to be kind of not really going outside, maybe because of risk of transmission of infection, or whether it's because we physically are unable to do so for whatever reason,
or because it's raining.
you
Anything.
can explore this virtual world, and maybe even reading a book is like exploring this space out with you.
I like it. It's both the idealism of going off into space in rockets and exploring the universe and all the infinity that comes therein, and also just the beauty that you don't even need to leave your seat to explore some kind of space. And there's a lot up in there to get into. if you so wish.
I think
Nice.
this is, and the other part of the quote is that it's doing it with others around you, right? That it's about finding other people that you can have on this journey, which is a lovely thing, because I was actually chatting to someone saying, hey, you know what, I'll ring you after my stream if you fancy. It's been quite a while since I chatted to you. And then they sent a little love heart to that. So I'm assuming that that's a yes, let's do it. I mean, you've got to read between the lines. I mean, I don't know if you'd even call that reading between the lines. Maybe you'd call that
Inference.
yeah, like, you know, if not everything has to be stated explicitly via words, especially in this day and age of emoticons and stuff.
And a lot of people will judge a relationship by like how much you can communicate non-verbally. Of course, that's difficult virtually sometimes, and sometimes it's easier virtually.
Man,
but yeah,
this brilliant thing possibly does deserve its own stream. That's true. I mean, I feel like I want to keep like the main topic somewhat board game related, but I do like the notion of just having, you know, certainly when we're going to be chatting about imposter syndrome in a couple of weeks, that's quite emotional. I do want to delve into this, but maybe we can chat about just the joy of having people to play board games. But yeah, just to reiterate the brilliant, can you repeat the quote?
yeah, I'm trying to find, how do I put the, I don't think I can put a comment in. I was going to just paste the quote. But it is the end of
Or
the
if
quote.
you paste it into the private chat, I can paste it into the...
Oh, okay, let's do that then. There we go. There's the full final paragraph.
Okay, so yeah, I'm going to paste this whole thing in and take all that money we spend on weapons and defenses each year and instead spend it feeding and clothing and educating the poor of the world, which it would pay for many times over, not one human being excluded. And we could explore space together, both inner and outer, forever, in peace. And no, Alan, you know, guests are welcome to use more than 5 words. But
explore space together in peace.
Explore space together in peace. Oh, nice work.
I was a copy editor.
Man. So let's move on, because it's not just about what might happen. It's not just about the brilliant things that, you know, Bill Hicks is trying to lead us towards. It's all about also about what's happened recently. Let's talk about some recent highlights, living life and seeing the sights, recent highlights, playing games and other delights, recent highlights. And as always, if you're in the chat, then you're very welcome to chime in with stuff that you've done yourself, games you've played, whatever you have enjoyed.
I want recommendations.
Pardon?
I want recommendations, damn it. Tell me what games to play.
If you are watching this after the fact, feel free to just keep it to yourself. Feel free to remind yourself what cool things did happen yesterday, because maybe there is something that you can say, oh yeah, actually that was quite nice, even if it was just a little thing. I'm going to talk about a thing. Okay, this is actually more than a little thing. I don't want to denigrate what Layla did here, okay? So we gave Layla some pears, right, from our garden. We've got a garden and you can get pears. Like, they're not great pears. They're not pears that you can just eat raw. They're a bit chalky, do you know what I mean? But if you cook them in a stew, they're quite nice. So Layla took these and made them into a compote. Like, I'm talking like pears with a bits of cinnamon. And then, so yesterday, after the stream, I had some cereal, I'm talking muesli, with milk and a bit of this pear compote on it. Just a wee spoon. Oh my God, it was so good.
This is what we feed our son. We make him little baby rice with pear. We do the same thing with the pears and boil them down, and he loves it. And sometimes Emily eats it.
Yeah, damn right. Darn right. It's like, it's all about that compote. Anyway, so that's like been a big recent highlight for me. Oh, and you know what? My other recent highlights, I told someone this morning, I wasn't sure if I was going to be public with it, but you know what? Why not? I have a date planned, a second date.
A second
We've
date.
been chatting since, like, I don't know, April or something. We had a first date, I want to say late August, start of September, and now we're having a second date tomorrow.
Nice. Ooh. Would it be doxing yourself to say what the date was? What it consisted of?
I don't necessarily want to go into everything that we might or might not do ahead of the time,
Okay.
but given that we are being advised to be a little bit. It might be my first time since lockdown eating out with someone, if you know what I mean.
Mm.
So I have eaten technically outside in the garden because, again, we're very privileged to have a garden. And I did eat technically food in what's the fancy park, the Queen's Park, the one near Buckingham Palace. You know that one.
Yeah,
St. James,
by
that's the
Marble
one.
Arch, St. James as well.
Yeah, St. James's Park. Yeah, beautiful park with lots of ducks and stuff. All sorts of waterfowl. They're lovely. Anyway, so had a wee kind of picnic there where I made some salad, and that's, so I'm quite excited about it. So yeah, that's my recent highlights. Ooh.
There have been some nice recent highlights in the chat.
Yeah, we've got hello Jay Foolsguard. Sorry, it's like lovely to see you. Sorry, I didn't. Chris from the Unicorn Collective started making a game with Chris Bockley a year ago, and it's finally approaching fruition with a nice playtest yesterday. It's exciting.
That is
That is
exciting. You are exciting.
Alan Oughton finally played the crew. Fun game. Yep, I mean, any Spiel des Jahres winner for sure. Like the ones from the early days, I think it's notable how much games have moved on. Do you know what I mean? Because Heron the Tortoise, it's not that great a game anymore. I'm just going to come out and say it. It's a good, solid game, but
yeah,
by today's standards, it doesn't quite hold up.
That's why it's of the year.
Yeah. And that's why I think they allow you to have the award for a certain amount of time. Like if you're a runner-up, you can print with that award on your box for like 1 year, and if it's like a winner for like 2, I don't know the exact lengths, but there is a length stipulated that after this expires, you can no longer put Spiel des Jahres on your box.
Interesting. I actually didn't know that.
But yeah, that sounds awesome. I would really like to play that. Have you played that, Lewis, yet?
I haven't. No.
Hmm.
Although there is a large bridge component in Fargo Season 3, which we have watched a lot of recently. So, bridge.
Alex saw Ross, presumably More Games Please Ross, doing improv comedy and music with the losers last night. That does sound super fun. And yeah, staying up late after the losers to chat with someone. I mean, if that's a highlight for you, then I think maybe the sleep loss is worth it. And
bye-bye, Chris.
Yeah, bye-bye, Chris. And I hope your youngest enjoys the drama class.
No drama.
What is your recent highlights?
I'm going to say, because I've got lots of highlights, but it's always good to just pick a game. I finally got around to playing Zolkin.
You not played that before?
I'd never played it before, but it was on sale on the Board Game Trading and Chat by Daniele Tascini and Simone Luciani. And it's good. It's good.
Oh, it's so good.
It's nice to see, because I'm just fascinated with Euro design and the kind of stages and how it has kind of gone from a term for,
tried and tested, boring stuff into like being this hotbed of innovation, essentially.
But also just like how they've ramped up from just being something that is strategic up to like something that requires a lot of thought, and how heavy things have quite gotten in the time since, but how much it still embodies those goals is really interesting to me. And I enjoyed that, and the little gears, and it just lovely. Although,
sorry, I'm just double checking for a bit of paper because I did remember that I do need to keep notes. But yep, here's my thing. But Yeah, Solkin, I absolutely adore it. Um, I've not played it very much, only a couple of times. But you can, I think you can adore something even if you've not played it that much, right?
Mm.
Like I checked it out before it came out. This person was like, "Hey, look, we're showing off this game. We're kind of contracted by the company. We're doing a bit of playtesting on behalf of them, and check it out. You do these gears." And I was like, "Whoa, this is crazy!" Using gears, and like back then, it was like little foam boards that
Mm.
it wasn't working quite as nicely. And then I played it a couple of times. I want to say with Charlie and Alan Paul, like lovely people. You know the Pauls as well, right?
Yeah, yeah. And I've not
And
had a chance to meet Danielle, the one of the designers. But I've heard many great things about his design abilities, and would love to work with him one day.
and
Yeah.
yeah, what I also notice is that it kind of feels like it's led into what at Nuremberg I saw coming out of Haba, which is a lot of okay, sliding these blocks
Mm.
along and things drop in. It's kind of adding a mechanical nature to do something that in theory you could do yourself, but with a lot
Yeah.
of bookkeeping. Like you could move all these things along. It would just be a right pain in the backside.
Yeah, knowing where those things exist is always really fun, and sometimes so in like the development process for games we've worked on, we've broken the math step back down to what it is, and I kind of say to the designers, like, what is this actually? And like with Venice, I said to David, I was like, what's like powering this map math-wise? And he was like, oh, it's an adjacency matrix, and I was like, oh, okay, but it is in reality just like push boat along thing, and it's the decisions that come out of that because of the complexity of
Mm.
the maths beneath it, but it's not maths that you need to engage with. And at any level, when the game does that for you, it's kind of a magical experience because it makes it feel like there's something happening that you don't get to see.
I find this interesting. Like Alex saying, "Oh, I tend to really enjoy Euro games, but I never want to try them." But for me, I think it's something like Tolkien. It is like it's a gimmick. Let's say it's kind of a gimmick, and no
It's
other
I think
board
it's a
game.
hook. We would describe
Yeah,
it as a hook. I think like there's a lot of Euro games. I know exactly what you mean, Alex. Where like a lot
but
of
when like it's got the cogs, I like how can you not want to try that? Like, yeah,
I think
and
it's one of those things where like a lot of Euro games, the thought goes into like the balance and the making it feel rewarding and like putting in limits for like people who are too good at it from winning all the time. And sometimes they forget to put a hook in that makes you want to really get into it. There was a game recently that came out called
yeah,
Nevada
sure, it's
City.
absolutely all of the Euro games are kind of all about turning resources into other resources, and it's about building an efficiency engine ultimately and being efficient with your things. And
But
um,
but there's a game that just came out called I think it's Nevada City by Rio Grande, and the thing that hooked me with that, it's a Euro game, but the thing that hooked me was the fact that I saw several mechanics that were quite narrative, it felt like, and you were like telling the story of this little family going out into the world, and there definitely needs to be like more Euro games that do that, that feel like just a simulation, like a playset,
mm.
but have a puzzle element as well. And because that's because like it's like we're our next game we're releasing is Florence, and it's the same with that. Like sometimes I just stare at the board and like what we're doing, and it's like this is a little story. It's a little opera that's kind of playing out, but it's also a puzzle. Like so, yeah. I do think I totally understand what you mean. More Euro games need better hooks and not just gimmicks.
So hopefully you've all. It sounds like everyone has been enjoying some things in recent life. I've realized that I need to be a bit more like Ignacy Shevacek and be more like, yeah, we need to get to the next section, which is, or even say, hey, you know what? We don't have time for questionably quick questions. If you want to get your questionably quick questions in, we've got literally 2 minutes. That's it. Hard line. Starting off, where exactly are you and what time is it?
I am at my desk in my living room in Southampton in the United Kingdom on Earth.
Where exactly is Southampton?
on the south coast of England,
Hmm.
in a little a peninsula betwixt two rivers,
There we
and
go.
it's 10:25 in the morning.
How often do you wear yellow?
Probably 1/5 or 1/6 of the time.
Hmm. What's the color that you wear the most often?
I don't know. I keep an intentionally multicolor wardrobe,
Hmm.
but guessing maybe black on average because of how many black shirts I own.
I can dig it. What's your favorite temperature?
23 degrees Celsius.
Ooh. A bit cold for my taste, but we could make it work.
Yeah, that's like the minimum that I am sure that my baby is the right temperature. If the room is that temperature, I'm like, okay, I can stop thinking about the temperature now.
Ooh, conversely, Sate says that's a bit warm for them.
Same for me. Like if it's just me in a building on my own, probably like 19 degrees. But that's not my life right now.
Okay. Oh, I was going to ask a really difficult question. I don't know. You can say pass, okay? I just want to say this is a terrible question. I'm sorry about this.
Go
Who do
ahead.
you love most?
My baby. My little baby boy.
Okay. And how old are they? Are you willing to say anything and more without doxing yourself?
He's nearly 6 months.
Okay. And if you could have one wish for the future of your wee baby, for the world in which they live in, or for their own future, what would that one wish be?
Better air.
Man.
It's everywhere. Can't fix the air once it's broke.
I like this wish. And that's the end of our questionably quick questions for today. And do you wish to say anything about a typical day for yourself recently? Maybe I should just have skipped this question.
It's the same as it was last time I was on stream. Do as much as I can and continue living with myself.
As we move into the main topic, I want to remind everyone to feel free to comment, ask questions, follow. I think I only need like 20 followers now on YouTube, and then I'm up to 100. And apparently, I get my own name, although people have said that maybe I don't. Okay, we'll have one last question from Alejandro. Lovely to see you, Alejandro.
Yeah, I was hoping I would be able to answer this one. It's Goose from Saga. He's a little, I think, seal wearing a fisherman's outfit. And he's very cute and tiny in what is a very sometimes violent and sexual comic. But Goose is good. He's very cute. Or Lion Cat. There's a lot of good characters in Saga. Read Saga.
Okay, so let's get stuck into the main topic. 30 minutes in, which is not bad for us.
I mean, we got mildly stuck in it earlier, so we've had maybe 5 minutes of it already.
But let's get back into the definition of what on earth are we talking about? Yeah, like what's his? I think what we were really getting into is what's his publishing, and what we decided is that once you are accepting money for a thing, it is being published. But then that's not really true, is it? Because if I accept money for an actual thing I've drawn, I haven't published that thing I've drawn. Maybe
I think it's just making stuff available one way or another, putting your art out there, or your information. Because I mean, the reason I look at it this way is I've worked as a journalist, I've published books, I've been engaged in multiple kinds of publishing, so I can draw a line between them definitely in terms of my experiences. But in terms of like board games, publishing and selling board games are like a completely different board game.
I mean, like if I made an actual handcrafted board game, let's imagine, and so let's imagine I painted a bespoke LDEC, let's call it the Golden Seal LDEC, or let's say a game wherein you bleder, Scottish words meaning to talk at length at a fast rate without necessarily making very much sense. And I'm not going to read out the rest
Let's
of the
not
title.
do the full title. No, been there, done that.
But yes, so I have technically made 3 copies, I want to say. You'd think I'd remember whether it's 2 or 3. I've definitely got one. It's right there. Andrew Dennison has one because they won a copy. And I think there was another version that I gave to the winner of like the Busy Game Day back when I was kind of trying to record videos, which unfortunately got lost. Long story. In Glasgow, so like there was one kind of preview thing in Scotland, in Glasgow, one preview thing in London, and it was like, okay, you get 1 copy of this game. So that is not publishing it. Even if I had charged people for that copy, having a handmade bespoke copy of a thing and even selling it to people, to my mind, is not publishing. You've got to have multiple copies, or at least the potential for multiple copies to be printed or made.
Where you want, it's an invisible line, but it's some kind of quantity where you could use the term distribute, you know, or like, or to just make available. Like, it's hard to make something available if there's 3, because technically there is, but you know, three sales later, it's not going to be that anymore. But yeah,
and sure, if we were to make a bespoke thing, it could be Pablo Picasso or Frida.
Almost sounds like Frida Carlyle in my mind.
And no, it would have to be Michelangelo. And just stop. Anyway, so yeah, so we've got a little bit of like, what do you need to self-publish? I mean, someone who says, oh, I'm out of my depth, like, if you make a game, you don't actually, like, this is like kind of touching upon imposter syndrome. At what point can you actually legitimately say, yes, this is worth someone else's money? Because I could easily, I'm not saying easily, maybe that's a bit of an overstatement, but I could today, like, invent a brand new game, and no matter how terrible it is, I believe that I could get it up onto the Game Crafter, or even get it up onto my Big Cartel webpage and say, yeah, this is a new game. Buy this game. It's cost this much money, and there's either print and play things, or you can get the Game Crafter to make a copy for you. And so, at what points do you decide to publish your own thing?
I mean, it kind of says, oh, when you say like, oh yeah, that would be easy, except maybe it wouldn't be easy, because it depends on your definition of like, when can I do that? When is it okay to do that? When am I, you know, abusing people by exposing them to something that's so underdeveloped? I mean, there are people who, like, you just have to go on, you know, on Kickstarter and see that there have been projects where someone's written, you know, essentially the word game in Bayer on a piece of paper and like hold up to a webcam and put it on there, and that it's like still counts. Like, it's still out there. And so like that feeling of like being out of your depth and being like, oh, I can't do this, or I'm an imposter.
Yeah, already been done. But I like to.
Yeah, and it's. I lost my train of thought.
I'm sorry, I shouldn't have distracted you. Like, look, going back to the definition, let's agree that it's when you make it possible for multiple folk to buy a thing you made.
Or experience.
So
I still think I've published a lot of things for free. Still publishing.
So you don't think that being able to buy it is a requirement for having been published?
No, people don't even need to read it or use it or play it, I think.
Really?
Yeah, I mean obviously like that.
So what's your definition? I don't understand, because if it's just making it available to people, then would you say that if I were to hypothetically go out and paint over a billboard and put up a nice bit of graffiti there, would that be publishing that graffiti?
Yeah, I suppose it's yeah. That's a limited time art installation, or or a published piece of work. It's all kind of like tricky nomenclature for something that people have been doing for thousands of years. But really, a lot of the interesting stuff comes in when people are experiencing it or spending money on it or whatever. So it can include all of those things.
So if I write a book but keep it on my hard drive, is that publishing it?
Not available to anyone.
If I write a book and show it to a housemate, is that publishing it?
No, because that's like a direct sharing. You're controlling who gives. It's like
Okay. What if
controls
there's a
one person to the
limited
next.
sharing? What if it's okay, anyone in the house can read this book, but you need to come to the house and you need to be invited to come into the house. We don't
Yeah,
let
I
just
mean,
anyone in
yeah,
here.
it's still publishing, just with a very, very limited audience. Like I've like worked on like magazines before that were being sent out to like a limited, amount of postcodes or whatever, and it was still like a couple thousand people, but outside of those postcodes, no one is ever going to see it unless they go onto a website, maybe. I don't know.
I mean, Alan has a definition here where it includes money, the occupation or activity of preparing and issuing books, journals, or other material for sale.
I'm happy to accept it as the definition.
I mean, we need to decide what we're talking about today. We don't have to say this is the definition forevermore. And I really like this notion of exploring what is publishing. I feel like I should have even invited you on at the start. Maybe like we could get stuck into it with a bunch of people to talk about the value of publishing without money being involved. That could be like its own topic, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, it still is like that's why I wanted to kind of include it, because it still has its own emotional journey. It still has those questions of, is this good enough to share yet? If you're gonna, yeah, whether you're publishing it for money or zero money, or showing it to 10 people or 1,000, it all arises similar questions.
I mean, at the point you're asking zero money, that's not really for
Yeah, or
sale.
pay as you feel.
I mean, again, like it's like a really blurry line, but I like, okay, you're making it available to people. You're saying that there's going to be multiple people engaged in this thing, but let's, for the purposes of this conversation, because we're already exploring, the differences between the self-publishing and the publishing, let's assume that you're doing it with the expectation of being paid something, if that's fair.
Sure.
And I think publishing without money being involved, making it available to other people, this seems like an amazing topic for down the line. But so, print and play is a form of publishing, Jay Foolsgard says. Is that just if you make it print and play available for some amounts of money? Like, I have the L deck. Oh yeah, I was going to say, like, if you want the deluxe version, it's normally £5, but right now it's £2.50. Or if you want the Comic Sans version, then it's £1. Right now it's 50p because we're in times of.
I think that the publishing for money becomes the norm, because in so many instances, to make something viable long term, even if you just need to pay the hosting on a website, you'll need to charge some kind of money for it, unless someone else is doing the hosting or whatever, or paying for the printing. So yeah, like needing to accept money to continue publishing it is an interesting kind of restriction for this conversation, because it does change things significantly.
Yeah, and I would really like to have a conversation with maybe a panel about the line between hobby and profession. And I think this is a really important thing when you kind of say, okay, these are the things that I'm doing. Essentially, I don't mind if I make money from them or not. And these are other things that I'm doing. And they might actually be incredibly similar things, but I do want to make money from them. For example, there's definitely some games that I make, and I'm like, you know what? I don't really care if this makes money. This is like a labor of love. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
at the point where I'm making a game where the box has like the name and nothing else, and I'm trying to work out if I can maybe, do I need the CE mark if I'm not selling it, if I'm only selling it direct? I think I probably still do.
If you're selling it as a business to people, yeah,
So I
probably.
probably still do. I can't get away with saying this is not a business, this is just a hobby. I mean,
Uh,
at a certain turnover, it's got to be declared as a business.
yeah, declared as income one way or another.
Yeah. Anyway, so the point is that that's something where, you know what, I would like it to not make me a loss. That's basically what I'm planning for that.
Mm.
Whereas if someone asks me, hey, if I were to start working on Yogi Junior, let's imagine, this is not an announcement. This is totally not an announcement. But if I were hypothetically in the future to start working on Yogi Junior, that would be largely because I'm likely to make money from it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's the thing.
And
Your experience of self-publishing or publishing largely changes based on whether or not you need to do it to eat, um, which is my case.
we should, yes, thank you. I'm glad someone has some sense.
Do you want to turn your light on, Bez? Because you're slowly disappearing into darkness.
I'm moving this thing to yeah, that's the thing. It's like actually just the middle of the day. You'd think it would be getting brighter.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
this is
right.
where I'm going to add on my lights, and
Oh, there we are.
now you can see me again.
Fantastic.
Yeah, London is blimmin' dark today. Anyway, so let's talk about yeah, similarities. Like there's lots of things that are just exactly the same, no matter what you're doing. If you're publishing a game, if you've got to get this game to be good enough, let's suppose that we're doing this whether you want it to be enjoyed by a lot of people and you say essentially this is a thing in its final format, or you say that this is a thing that I've got available for sale, you need it to be a certain level of quality.
Yeah, I mean, and that depends largely on your own definition, especially when you're self-publishing, or if you're very persuasive when you're publishing. um, and it's also, it's not just a case of quality, but also why are you publishing it? Whether it's a case of I'm making this for a specific niche of people, or I'm making this to appeal to everyone and make lots of money and sleep on a bed of £5 notes, or whether you are doing it purely as an act of self-expression and saying, I don't care how people respond to this. This is how I feel, which there's, in my opinion, not enough of in games. I could do with more self-expressive games. Maybe not super expensive ones, but
I mean,
or,
this is something
yeah,
that like Matt's Fantastic does a great job of, because keeping that hobby and business separated, where sure, Matt's done Team Free with Brain Games, that's probably best known for, but they've also done games which are very much about sex and about having establishing communication about sex and sexual preferences. And then they've got a game which is literally about tearing up a sheet of paper, and it's a one-page print and play. And their whole hobbyist board game line is sort of like, yeah, let's just see what I want to do. And
yeah, and those people are like super necessary for, like, there is an interplay between those two, right? Where, like, if something is currently not viable to do as a business, but there are people willing to do it as a hobby, and then if there are people willing to engage with that and play those games or read the thing or whatever, if that continues, eventually it will become something that someone wants to capitalize on. So having some area, some space for like publishing things that are like an act of self-expression or an experiment or whatever is always healthy and good, I think.
for sure, like we've talked about the reasons for making lots of things, and or sure, when you're a designer, you might be just okay. I want to get it on a shelf to have my name on it, and whether you publish that thing yourself or send it to another publisher, the end result is going to be similar. I mean, both of those are going to meet that criteria that you get your thing in a shop with your name on it. Hopefully, I mean, check that it's in the contract that you get your name on the box, because don't take everything for granted.
And I mean, that was what I was wanted from the beginning. To be honest, I think from like from a very young age, I wanted to be involved in publishing in some sense. Although with what I knew of the world, I just took that to mean writing books, because I didn't realize you could publish other things as well. But that kind of slightly egotistical drive to just be like, I want to make an impact and have a legacy and like have my name out there is like quite a big draw towards it.
And so now it feels like you've moved towards publishing other people's things. You've taken on this business full time, and you're not really planning to go back to doing your own designs.
No, I mean, so that's why I think the interesting thing we've hit upon so far is like, when is it good enough? Because that was really like what threw me into the world of board gaming, self-publishing, was the fact that I just had that confidence to be like, this is good enough. I can make it good enough. And people would tell me the same. So I would publish things. And it was just that drive to just get out and create and push stuff out. And then I still have that like drive to design and to self-publish, but I haven't published any titles of my own designs because I've learned to enjoy that creation process more. And I realized that there's a value
the finishing parts of the creation.
Yeah, and also just the start and the middle and the idea creation. And I've got so many projects that I want to like eventually get, public and eyeballs on. But for now, I'm content to.
So, from your perspective, so just to take a step back, for those who haven't met you before, you did Mind Out and Undownsized, and
those are the two that I designed myself and then just published.
And since then, you've done 3 games, I want to say, that are from other people.
4. Yeah.
And so you've got a fair bit of experience on both sides. And from your perspective, what's the difference? And why did you go this way? Is it largely about money and needing to get other people to do that start of the job, like specializing yourself?
Yeah, I think like it was. I think on a practical level, it is just like I cannot create and publish enough good games in a year, or make one singular super popular one in order to support myself financially, and also just over time learning the joy of collaboration, and how exciting that last stages of a project is when someone has spent however long designing, developing, and playtesting a game, to then come to me and say, I've made this thing and I think it's really cool. And then for me to think, oh yeah, I think it's really cool as well. And now we figure out how we get, a couple thousand people to agree and say that it's really cool and play it themselves. That's what I really enjoy. And also, coincidentally, what makes an amount of money that I can live on. Yeah.
I mean, that's what it comes down to. And so, obviously, whether it's your design or someone else's design, you've still got to go through the same motions. You've still got to get the artist, get the interface with the manufacturer, get those quotes, do all that malarkey that, you know, it's not my favorite parts of it, but everyone's got to go through that and all that fulfillment unless you pay someone else to deal with that. Is the similarities obvious? Do we need to dwell on that anymore?
No, I think it's because I think it's also like people. I'm conscious some people might be thinking of this as like publishing in the sense of giving it to a publisher, rather than so there's like self-publishing your own stuff, publishing other people's things as a publisher, and like giving your game or whatever to a publisher and saying, please publish this, because that's the uh,
Three angles that you can come to it. That's, I guess,
suppose,
like
yeah.
self-publishing. It's you are the designer, and you've got that joy of seeing it all the way through. And so I really want to get stuck into the differences, like, because a lot of people say, okay, I managed to self-publish my own thing. Does that automatically mean that you're going to be a brilliant publisher for other folk? I'm not going to name names. Like
Yeah, I think
someone
like there's different skills in there, and like I say, because everyone brings their own expectations to a project, and your experience of self-publishing will largely be determined by like how good do you think the thing you've made is. Then when you are publishing other people's things, it's the process of getting everyone happy with that, including the customer, because it may be that a designer has come up with something that they think is amazing or is crucial, but or you think that if you actually showed that to a customer, that would be the reason they wouldn't buy it, and that can be a really, really difficult process.
But don't you go through that same process as a self-publisher? Wouldn't you be going through that final development and tweaking at the end of
in theory?
Minds Out?
I mean, like it really, that's the thing with self-publishing, is it's reliant on how receptive you are to feedback, how knowledgeable you are about people's preferences, how much feedback you're going out and getting, and from whom. Because like I tested Mind Out with a lot of people, but arguably not enough people who, for whatever reason, would have been willing to tell me to take certain bits back to the drawing board, or I was asking the wrong questions, and those were only, and then the lesson learned from that is only once I published it and I've put it out, and then people who are complete strangers and have no qualms about telling me how they feel, will tell me, something that potentially never came up in the actual development process, because for whatever reason I was getting positive feedback. So that's a difficult thing. It's like it's that self-publishing process is so reliant on you having the right level of self-interrogation. And equally, like some people have pitched me games recently or asked me for feedback on games, and I've maybe been too harsh, because from my perspective, publishing a game means it needs to sell enough to support me and my family, whereas from them, they're coming at it maybe more from like a hobbyist perspective and thinking, oh, I'm having fun making a game with my friends. And so that when I come in and they're like, no one's gonna like this, this needs to change, this is broken, this is not interesting, then people think, what? This is horrible. Why would you say these things? Because there's different importance placed on those.
I feel like that's almost like a difference between doing it as a living, as a source of income, versus doing it, as a hobby. Like, let's say, I mean, I am planning to continue making games for the L deck and publishing lots of stuff for that, and also doing things that we might call Bez's budget boxes. I don't know. That's the words we're looking for.
BBB.
Or maybe it'll be birthing brilliance. I don't know. Anyway, the point is that this will be like things like it will be going back to tuck boxes for a kind of short, small print runs, and again, trying to not lose money with it, if you know what I mean. But that's a far lower barrier, and it will be like, yeah, this is a thing. some people are going to enjoy it. Let's get it out there. Let's share it with the people who would enjoy it. And hopefully people enjoy it, because there's still some joy in my mind, at least, and I would like to get Plus out there. I'd like to get my kind of poetry cards out there, which I just invented in like the last, in however long lockdown's been, so it's been like over half a year, I guess. So it's actually been quite a while. But anyway, being back on topic, like if I said, okay, this is the thing that I need to earn an income from, then I would be holding it up to a different standard.
Yeah.
And I might be like, okay, I need to make sure that this is, completely serving people, but maybe you start taking fewer risks. Maybe there's something that's valuable to be out there that you just can't do because it's not business viable, if you know what I mean. And I think this is a big thing of, the perspective that you look at it from.
Yeah, and it's kind of, even if you are coming at it from a business perspective, it's setting your expectations of self-publishing, so that you can, and knowing what to expect, so that you can have not an easy experience, but like a manageable experience. Not saying that for my first game I'm going to do a cool mini on art style miniatures game and I'm going to ask for $1 million on Kickstarter. And then in that situation, the worst thing that you can do is succeed, because then you have however many thousands of people sending you emails saying, "Where's my game?" And then you realize, oh, there are things here that I don't actually know how to do. And then it's a case of how willing are you to ask for help? How good are you at recognizing when you need help? Because so like growing up, my dad ran a lot of businesses, and the thing that he's like the most self-reliant person I know, which is really good, quality to have. But then on occasion you will find, he will do stuff that he is completely unqualified to do just because he's like, well, this needs to be done, so I'll do it. And that was something I didn't want to make the same mistake going into self-publishing, and I have made the same mistake on some occasions. But like, I'm trying to find my point now. But yeah, like how willing are you to like ask for help and realize when, okay, someone else could do this better, and do I have to?
Yeah, for sure.
If
You're self-publishing, I guess there can be that temptation to say, this is all me. I want to do literally everything myself. And for sure, there's some parts of me that's really proud of the fact that, like this deck, I didn't make the typeface on the back of the box, and I didn't run the machines that physically make the game. But I did basically everything else. Like I drew that, I did the design, I wrote the rules, I sent the files to the printer, I physically signed a lot of the copies. If you got a copy of the game from me, then I sent it out to you physically. I probably drew myself on the envelope.
It's like choosing, you need to choose your moments to, like inject yourself into a process. Otherwise, like, if you've got that money sitting around and you just want to like hammer out games and not lift a finger, like it's, there are companies that do that, but it's not a personal enterprise necessarily.
I mean, Aquasulus talks about knowing your limitations, and I'm going to start getting into the questions. Sorry that we've been ignoring them a wee bit. But for sure, now I'm more likely to say, okay, yes, Chris, I really appreciate you coming in one day a week, and you do the InDesign kind of final file stuff, putting it in together, and like there's a lot of stuff that just frees me up, because I've been working more than full time on this for so long, and I think this year has made me kind of crash, partially because of the energy of the world around us, combined with just this has been a thing that I'm doing for so long, and now it feels like I'm almost more of a streamer than a board game designer in many ways, in terms of the number of hours spent.
It's knowing your limitations, but also knowing your value. It's not just, you can't just look at it as a case of I can't do that, so now I have to find someone else to do it, or pay someone else, because that can be self-destructive. If you keep telling yourself like, oh, I can't do that, I need to go out and find someone and pay them, and then before you know it, you've spent 50K of your personal finances getting something to be like good enough, where really like it's knowing when do I have the time and the energy to try and do something myself and maybe learn from it, and be able to direct those people better later on if I do need to ask for help. And just knowing like what is the best use of my time and of other people's time, so I can inject the best thing that I can offer into this project. Because like I'm not an accountant, I'm not a bookkeeper, I'm not a driver, I can't manage a warehouse. And it would take me a lot of time to figure out how to do those things semi-effectively. So that's why I allow other people to benefit from my need to do that, and support them. And
I think I really like just
enjoy.
what you're saying about if you get someone else to do something, it's not that you couldn't do it. Like sometimes it's not about, hey, I couldn't publish this game. It's like, you know what? If I spent all my time, I probably could have eventually gotten in a bind to be where it is. But yeah, that's a big limitation, because there's a company that spent decades, I don't know how long, but Gigamic spent decades establishing these big international relationships. I would have to spend, I don't know how long setting that up, and that's not something I want to do. And so I have knowing your limitations, knowing what you want to do, and being able to say, yeah, I don't want to do that, or I do want to do that. Do you want to self-publish? Do you want to be a designer? Do you want to always do that thing? Or because you are still bringing value. And hello, Edartwin Games, it is lovely to see you. I will get to your question in just a wee bit. So let's start off with Alan Outson's a few questions from Alan. It started, did you know you'd enjoy publishing other people's games before you started doing it, or was it something you discovered?
I suppose I didn't know I didn't even think of publishing other people's games before I started publishing my own. It wasn't something I sought out necessarily. I was lucky to be on a panel at UKG, and I want to say 2016 or 2016.
Wyvern's Lair?
Wyvern's Lair, where I was introduced as UK indie publisher of Braincrack Games. And from there, that put me in the position of people showing me their things that they'd created. And then from then on, more people would send in ideas. And it was a case that I was captured by the passion of people who had spent. I got to have like a one-on-one talk with people who had made something that they were really proud of and thought had a place in the world. And that is when I thought, oh yeah, I think I would enjoy this. And it just made sense, like, logistically for me, I suppose, because I had this audience now on Kickstarter.
Like, it sounds very much like it's something that, to make that transition from self-publishing, I mean, I don't think it's about being told that Lewis was a publisher, because they were already a self-publisher, but maybe other people hadn't put Lewis in the box of you are only making your own games.
Yeah, it was fake it till you make it, because I think it was either I volunteered myself for it, or Peter Blancan put me forward for it, or some version of the above. It was a while ago. But yeah, like contextualizing myself as a publisher, then I had those opportunities, and then I realized, like, oh, this is something worth doing. I didn't set out to be like, give me your games.
And we've got a couple of questions from Alan, like, that are very related. Would I like to publish other people's games, stuff by others or stuff by Bez's friends? I don't know. And it's like, for sure. Oh, I don't have a box of the L deck to hand, like the deluxe one. But on the back it says stuff by everyone. I've kind of scribbled out Bez in red pen. I kind of redrew it and then did it in watercolor if anyone cares. On
because in your own way, you've found that a lot of the joy of a game game creation is the joy of collaboration, especially with like the LDAC and things like that. Like,
Yeah, I mean, the LDEC is all about that. And as I make categorical, I made the cards, and it is limited to these specific letters on each card. And so it's following that. But Categorical is a game designed by Tom Cauldron. But yeah, it's going to have art by me, but then I'm going to get Chris to put the final files together. And so it's starting to become a bit more. And one day, I do believe that there will be an L game that is not designed by me, and the art is not by me, and I'll just be there kind of as a project manager, if you know what I mean. But
I mean, so in a sense, you are publishing other people's games already.
But at the same time, I don't know if I'd really want to get into other people's fully standalone games. I had a thing with Andrew January. I'll chat with them. It might be one of the busy budget boxes because of the nature of it, where it's like stuff by Bez's friend Andrew, or I'll maybe just scribble out Bez and write Andrew in there instead. But it'll be a game that, or maybe Bez and Andrew. So the idea would be that Andrew's done the design, we've done development together, and I've done the art for that. And it's a game that uses an app that Andrew January is able to make. And so, yeah, that's not something that I could do. But for me, I mean, I think the key difference is that I'm planning to go more of the designer route. As I see my financial rewards, it's mainly through doing consultation, through doing design work, through doing, like if someone wants to pay me for one day sponsoring the stream, like it's going to be at least, like it costs me money to kind of keep using StreamYard, frankly, to be multicasting via YouTube and Twitch and stuff. And I'm not monetizing via Twitch because I don't like the idea of having those adverts and stuff. But at the same time, anyway, it's like kind of, why are you doing this? Why on earth are you doing this? And knowing that. But yeah, that leads to, do a lot of game publishers start off as self-publishers, do you think?
They do now, more than they used to. I think, yeah, I think a lot of people follow the same path of like, I have a thing, I want to get out there. They find an audience, and then it's like, now I have an audience, and now I need another game. And it's whether or not you decide, I'm going to make the next thing for this audience, or I'm going to use this platform, or I'm going to give this platform to someone else, but still benefit from it because it's got my name on the box,
Yeah.
I can see why people make the path, because if it's something that you enjoy doing and you want to do it full time, it makes a lot of sense.
And I think being a self-publisher is a nice way to kind of check if you like it in a way with low stakes, because one of those things that we've not really gotten into is the kind of feeling of, oh wow, it's someone else's baby that I'm dealing with. But when you're choosing other people's things, let's get into Edwardson Games' question, which is, how do you decide whether someone else's work has worth? I mean, I think Edwardson is basically asking about when you're being pitched something, how do you decide whether you want to accept this pitch? And obviously, it kind of ties into judging your own work. So can you tell us about it?
Yeah, I mean, it's a difficult, horrible thing that I privately do not enjoy a lot, especially if it's like face to face. And so I try and be like sparing with how much like face to face like respond to someone's work time I do, because I don't decide the worth of something. Really, I decide the worth of it to me and to my company and to the audience that we have. But really, like, I get pitched a lot of things that have had a lot of love and care put into them, but they have arrived on my desk and it's the wrong place for it to be. People, whether because they don't know what we're working on now, or or because it's not the right thing for our audience or whatever. Like, yeah, I can't stress that enough. I don't get to decide what's good and what's bad. I just decide what I think will make me money. And that sounds facetious, but it's easier than me saying, I'm the arbiter of what's a good and bad game. In terms of like,
No, I think that's super important because, I mean, okay, for sure, a lot of your games that you've taken on from other people have been all over the shop. Like if we compare Dead and Breakfast, which is, let's say, lightweight sort of Euro casual family game, sort of.
Yeah.
And then we've got, on the other side, we've got like some meaty Euros from Fabio or Turksey. I don't know why I used, from Lo Piano or
Piano and
Turksey.
Taxi.
Yeah. Maybe I feel more friendly with Fabio, which is probably true because I was in the pub more often with them, just the way that things happened. But anyway, so, or you've got this immense like miniatures game.
Yeah, we know how to pick them. And again, that's like that was a process.
Do you feel like that was a mistake, spreading yourself so wide?
I don't think so. I think it was a good thing to introduce ourselves to different audiences and examine what it was people wanted to see from us. Because I did like downsize, mind out, Farsight, Ten Movers, Ragusa, and like by spreading myself out and not just being like, all right, now people like downsize, and I'm gonna do downsize 2, downsize 3, and believe me, I thought of it, but by spreading myself, I got to like talk to more people, find out what it was people enjoyed about board gaming in their world, and that's what I use when I'm looking at someone's game and deciding, what is its worth to me is how much do I think someone will enjoy it, and how much, and if I think it's, and can I get them to enjoy it more in the process of developing it and collaborating with this person, and how much of that work will I need to do really, because the prospect of working with someone who like an artist / designer who can bash out one beautiful oil painting a day and create a Euro puzzler that everyone's going to want on their table, like that's a much more appealing partnership than someone who's like made a spreadsheet and they say there's a game in here somewhere, please make it into a finished product. It's a case of like one-to-one kind of personal compatibility and yeah, like what I think the audience is going to make of this, because that was ultimately like why, like how I could jump from like a Farsight to Ragusa, because I was like, I know that there are people out there who want Fabio's next game. And he's a person who is incredibly intelligent and spends a lot of time making sure something is nigh on faultless, and covering his ass before he gives his game to someone else to publish. And that was what made me decide to publish that game, for example.
Yeah, I have to say, every time Fabio brought something to playtest, you knew that it had been tested, solo, with Fabio playing all the hands and Fabio really considering everything. And even if Fabio said, "Oh, I don't really know if this works," which was the original dice placement thing where it was a B game.
Yeah,
I think it was with like green dice, which were, because I think Fabio just had green dice. That's neither here nor there. But there was a lot of work to do with that. But so it's like, here's a thing that actually works. And some people would have just taken that thing and said, okay, I'm going to pitch this. But Fabio was like, okay, here's an idea. And then like, what was the Caravan game? Do you know the Caravan game, Fabio's Caravan game? That's
Osprey are doing now.
Are they?
Merv.
Yeah, like that's such a good one. Like with like caravans coming in from the sides, and like it's people sometimes attacking you, and there's all these mechanisms, and then it was like, this is a solid game. And like at that point, lots of people were like, okay, I'm going to tweak it around the edges. And Fabio was not satisfied. Fabio was like, I'm going to change this completely. And I remember like working with Fabio in the possibility that I, on behalf of ACG, was meant to be taking on one of Fabio's games. I think it was the one which used to be about Venetian pottery. Yeah.
Yeah, the Changnan.
Yes, thank you. Man, you're better at names than I am. But yeah, this was like such a good theme, but like we were like, okay, we need to change this and this just to make it a bit more exciting. Okay, can we get it to be masks? Okay, let's think about this. And hey, could we maybe change this thing? And Fabio was like, okay, this is the reason why I've done this. And like hearing, I mean, when you speak to a playtester, you don't owe them any explanations. If I say, hey, Fabio, how I don't like that, Fabio go, okay. If I say, okay, Fabio, have you considered this? Fabio, okay. And, that's it. From a playtester designer perspective, that's where the relationship needs to end from a strong perspective. You don't owe anyone any explanation. But then when you're in the publisher seat and you say, okay, have you considered this? The designer bloody well should tell you either, no, I haven't, I will ponder that, or yes, I have, and here's what's wrong with it or good about it. And
yes, everything there for a reason.
Fabio, yeah, can't say enough good stuff about Fabio Loppiano. Anyway, so that's the end of the Fabio Loppiano appreciation minute. Yeah, so we've decided that it's not about the absolute worth of something, it's contextual. You're talking about what can you bring to it. You're talking about matching the game, not just with would people enjoy it, but with the kind of people that you can reach. And how do you identify what people you can reach?
Which people give me money. Not to oversimplify, but yeah, I mean like the degree to which a audience base, whether we've reached them before or not, is choosy, to use that word. How elitist or non-elitist, how broad it is, because the broader an audience is, the harder it is to kind of really penetrate. So if I'm going to go out and say I'm going to make the next Monopoly, I'm going to make a family game, I need to compete with everyone else who's trying to make a family game because there are billions of families. Whereas if I say I'm going to make a German-style Euro game, and pitch it to an early adopter audience on Kickstarter, then I can define what my approach needs to be with a lot less risk, because I know what floats in that arena and what doesn't, and how I can do something that is different enough that it will stand out. And just knowing how people in that arena tend to respond to things, which is to say, when we published Farsight, we were met with a lot more, not universally angry, but like a lot more angry responses to things, news, decisions, than we were with Dead and Breakfast, where people, or like a family game on Kickstarter, where we would come along and put it out there and we'd get like less money, but people would generally be happy to wait until it turns up, and then they'd play it and say, cool. But yeah, like it's knowing those audiences. Yeah,
I want to kind of get into the notion of diversifying your catalog. So like if you had downsize 2, downsize 3, I don't know what these games are all about. I mean, is that something that you want someone else to design for you? Maybe we could talk. But
I've made Downsize 2.0, but not published it, for a lack of broad playtesting opportunities. Put it that way.
But look, if you are one person making your own stuff, do you think you need to be more focused? Like to say, hey, this is my stuff. Let's say you're Phil Eklund and you are making these games that are all about theoretical science. Or let's say I'm trying to think of another person who's even in, like, let's say you're Bez and I'm like, okay, I've made a bunch of lighter party games. Maybe at this point, I need to start thinking, you know what? Even if I could have self published Seize the Power, like there was a point where Tiz and I were saying, you know what? If other publishers don't want it, yeah, we probably will end up self publishing it because we care about it enough, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But maybe it's at the point where maybe I don't want to have super political and adult games on the same imprint, if you know what I mean. Maybe stuff by Bez does have to have a certain level
Yeah.
of accessibility.
It's
And
about setting people's expectations, really, isn't it? Like
hmm,
that people are the fear that people are going to be disappointed if you make three accessible family games and then one political game, that you might have attracted people that would be put off by the fourth thing or angered even is this, you know, is
hmm,
the terrifying thing. And then it was an emotional roller coaster, you know, publishing different games for us, because suddenly I went from, you know, doing games where people were like, I like the colors, um, when it was just people just like nice to it because there wasn't anything there that they saw worthy of being, you know, horrible about, to doing, you know, like a 60, you know, 100 quid game where people were more, well, rightfully more critical because I was asking them to spend more money on it. Um,
yeah, and when
and,
you
and
have that miniatures game, you know, okay, when you've got miniatures in the box and when you're making it a big, expensive proposition, the basic mechanisms have to be good enough to deserve that treatment.
yeah, and it's depending on like the pedigree of the other things that you are competing with, people will be, you know, that's another thing that's going to set people's expectations. If you say that, you know, I'm designing a Euro game, and every given action involves rolling a dice and moving, people are going to say, people are going to want to call you up, even if like you've, you know, on the back end you've completely justified it. People are going to call you up and say, why is that there? That shouldn't be there. This is about to be strategy, and um, people will take offense and feel diminished if they feel
Hmm,
like you're trying to pitch them something that's below them,
a bit
even if it's
rubbish.
not. Yeah, I mean, even if it's not, like,
But
even
it's
if it's
not
just a
just about this
perception.
quality, it's also about style. And like, when do you think that, getting back to the whole what we're meant to be talking about, which is comparing the two aspects, comparing
Mm.
the nature of self-publishing versus comparing the publishing other people's things, do you think that in self-publishing you need to be more targeted with what you're offering, or do you think you need to be fairly focused either way?
I think with self-publishing, you can, like, the amount of risk you're taking is completely up to you. Is the thing.
Hmm.
When we launched Downsides, I didn't have any money, so I didn't spend any money on it. And that means that the Kickstarter page looked a bit janky and the video wasn't very good. Um, but it was enough to reach my audience. Um, and because I wasn't putting in lots and lots of money, I wasn't slaving away, making, you know, going back to the drawing board constantly and playtesting it and changing things and tweaking the art so much. You know, it was a relatively quick process. I think it took me like maybe 4 or 5 months from the first idea to like getting it on Kickstarter, which is, I think, relatively quick. Um, and but yeah, that is like a really different experience to a publisher where, like, as soon as you have that audience, even if you're not spending any money releasing something, it's the risk of disappointing them now. You've got something you can lose by publishing a bad game.
Mm.
Um, and so I think that's why, like, a lot of people are drawn to self-publishing, because they're almost scared of the idea of pitching something to a publisher and being told that it's not good enough, or that it's
Yeah.
wrong for them, which is a scary experience. But ultimately, if your final goal is make lots of money, reach lots of people, be famous, whatever, it's going to save you time giving it to someone who's published
Mm.
umpteen games and knows what people do and don't like. Um, but it can still be disheartening, because then again, not every publisher is actually going to sit with you, you know, or rarely is a publisher going to reject a game and then say, okay, but I'll sit with you and help you make it so that people like it,
Yeah.
because they've already got games that they're trying to make perfect. And that sucks. Like I hate, I'm almost scared to playtest some games because I don't want to discourage the designer if I don't like it. And
I
I
mean,
know
you've
that I
got
don't
to
have the
kind
hours in
of
the
get
day.
over that still, because I know, like, I was talking with a bunch of people about how there are people who've come to Royal Festival Hall to playtest something, and then they've brought this thing that they've been working on for a while, and
Mm.
people have said that's good, and then we've been like, okay, here's some major issues with it, and it is going to need to go back to the drawing board, but there's good bits here. And we always try to make sure to be somewhat encouraging, because you just don't want to just say, like, especially if it's a newcomer, we try to give them a compliment sandwich or whatever. But and like that could be a topic in itself, not turning away people. Yeah, I'm going to actually write that down. Not turning away people. But the point is that if you say to someone, "Hey, this is great. This parts of a game that you've been working on 5 years for," but like it's like, okay, this part is really interesting. The rest of it feels a bit derivative, but actually, if you strip that away, even on its own, this one part would be an interesting game. And Brett comes along and says, "Look, don't get disheartened. You don't just have one game, you've got two games. You've got this one game, which is really interesting, and you've got this other game, which, if you want, you could take it away and keep working on it. It's just that they don't really fit together." Which was, for the record, it was like an area control war game mixed with a quiz game. And they didn't really mesh. It was like, I know that some signs like that says, "Whoa, that's exciting," but no, it still work. If it had worked, then it would have been brilliant for sure. Anyway, but and then the person comes like maybe 2 times, and then you're like, "Oh yeah, I'm just discouraged." Or someone else comes up with a game based around music, and we're like, "Yeah, this has got this bit is an issue, and this bit is an issue," because they were actually talking about going to UK Games Expo playtesting like the next weekend, and we're like, "Yeah, you can still make those changes. Like, it's still a week away."
It's difficult as well, like because
Then they kind of say, "No, I'm kind of not going to do it," and
it's tricky. Like often as a publisher as well, like I'm talking to people across like a language barrier or sometimes like a cultural barrier. If they're coming to me with like, "Here's something I've made and I played it with my family and we think it's really fun," it's hard for me to gauge sometimes, like, do they want me to give this the same treatment as, as like something that we're going to like publish in the thousands. I want to give people valuable feedback, but I also don't want to, like, crush hopes and dreams. And it's impossible sometimes to know which is which if I don't know the if I don't know what it's like, if it's how it's going to sound through Google Translate or whatever.
And yeah, speaking of reaching across to other people through different cultures, have you done any localization?
Yes, we've I think what is it, 6 countries. So with Venice and Ragusa, both games are available in Polish, German, Italian, French. Yep.
English.
And English. Yeah. And that's a difficult process that I've learned a lot from, because it's having a relationship with other publishers, not designers and stuff. So they're just by starting up your own company, you're usually a bit more bolshier than the average person anyway. And then also for downsize, there is a Chinese edition,
Wow.
which is
How did that come about? That
well,
sounds like a
exactly.
story.
I've learned in the time since, that was the first one we did, but I've learned in the time since that is a rarity. I wish I could find it because it's such a cool box.
Okay,
Give me
so
one moment.
yeah,
Yes,
whilst
I've got it. One sec. Here we are. That's downsize in Chinese.
let me make it a little bit bigger.
And I can compare that to an English copy.
I think this is a thing that people almost forget, that a publisher isn't like the final stop. Like it's not like, okay, the buck stops with the publisher, now the publisher does everything. I mean, I have technically, I'm trying to, I don't know who Happy Color is. This is a publisher, but
Yeah,
apparently I've been published by them, and I've been published by 99 Games, I want to say,
yeah,
and
in
also that
Holland.
Brain Games, and there's, because every publisher, it doesn't make sense to try to do everything in all the countries yourself. You're better off,
Or at least it's difficult
reach,
to. Because
yeah,
because
and
it does make sense in some senses. Like if you can, like, and then this is why a lot of games have, zero language on the actual components, and they have like 10 rule sheets, because you can then potentially print something and then just sell it to thousands upon thousands more people. But then you run into the problem of, is anyone going to buy uh, a copy of this game in India, given that the gross median income in that country is like nothing compared to like Western Europe. Um, how many people are really into like what we call hobby games in China? What kind of games do they actually like? Beyond the like our kind of European sphere, the preferences start to change and the laws start to change, and you can't publish
and the
certain things in certain
representation, like
places.
things like skeletons, or
Mm.
what, like Calvin was talking about, a sword in the West might mean attack, but in some countries that might be, oh, it's a sword. That, I mean, they'd understand it, but maybe a spear is the more natural thing to show.
Yeah, and it's, and kind of knowing, people use the term, the maturity of a market, and it's not a term I like, but it's the first one that comes to mind insofar as like, how many how much diversity of these products are on sale here, which is to say, in China, like, because hobby games are not as popular unless you're in like a very metropolitan area, like like Taiwan. um, they're not as popular, so they will take the 10 most popular games that came out in Europe each year, and do some of their own, um, compared to like if you've got something that's just like a family game that anyone can play, and then you're maybe going to have more luck with it. So yeah, long story short, we've done some localization and learned a lot from it, which is to say, clear communication and consistent principles and values, and respecting other people's time, and using it as a learning experience, not just a cash cow.
And I think I'm going to start being a bit more rigid, and like around the 90-minute mark being like, okay, now we
Sure.
have to wrap up, which doesn't mean that we're going to stop straight away. It means that the wrap up might take half an hour. So basically, we've been talking about, is there a big difference? You've been talking about this extra communication, and for sure this having more games on your roster might mean that you get in with more distributors, but is there a big difference between doing that and if you were able to design, let's say, 5-10 good games a year, is the difference really just a question of opening up more time for you to focus on this one aspect and just do it better?
Mm. Sorry, was that a question?
Yeah, basically, is there any big difference beyond this? Is there any other big differences?
I don't think. I think like for me, I come at it from like an emotional angle, knowing that like it's what you risk, both in a financial and an emotional sense. Whereas like because if you put your game out there and you have worked very hard on it and you think it's good, and you are putting yourself in direct contact with the audience, to roll the dice depending on how nice they are, what they think of you, because it's just you putting yourself forward. It could be either a very rewarding experience because they like you, or it could be a nasty experience because they think you've come off as aloof or underprepared, or whatever. And it might be that people just ignore you for that sense, or it might be that there's a Twitter pylon because people want to call you out for whatever perceived injustice. Whereas, like both when you are giving something to a publisher to publish on your behalf, or whether you're publishing other people's game, there's that like diminished responsibility where like it's not just you now. You can take it as a team and you can reflexively react to things. You can defer the blame if something goes that badly.
I mean, that's a kind of, I'm going to say it's a bit, well, it's a bit of a mean thing to do. Like if you're actually, I assume you are joking.
Well, not like not like explicitly, but like if someone publishes your game and it doesn't sell as well, you're not judging yourself as a publisher. You're judging them. You're thinking maybe I'll go with someone else next time. It's not like your world has crashed and burned and you've spent all your life savings and there's now no coming back. Like I say, like this, I'm using intentionally
for sure,
hyperbolic examples, but
perspective of a designer. If you, as a designer, become a publisher, there is more work. There's more money involved. You've got to raise that capital. Versus pitching, yes, there's emotional labor in doing that pitching. There is work in that pitching. I'm not going to deny it. Sometimes there's money involved. Although having said that, the pitch project, that was really cool, where it was only like $10 and that was it per pitch sheet that you wanted to send. But, for sure, if you want to pitch at a convention, you need to get to that convention. That can be quite expensive. You've got to take time off. Maybe you need to take holiday time. But,
so often people invest money directly into getting a graphic designer to do their sell sheet to give them that extra edge or whatever. And or they buy video equipment to make videos. That alone could be a costly experience.
Yeah, I know that there are people who charge money to design sell sheets, and their sell sheets look a lot nicer than what I submitted last night for the records, where mine was basically text, white background, and one photo. Now, I thought a lot about the text that I put onto the sheet, I thought about where exactly the text was. But for sure, if there was make it look more like a fancy diagram, have more eye-catching colors, then for sure, if it was a sell sheet that might arrive on someone's desk, there's a big benefit to that. And people are, I'm not going to go into, let's move back into, from the publisher's perspective. As soon as you get another designer involved, as soon as you get designers pitching stuff to you, there's this new stakeholder. And you're responsible not only to yourself and not only to, I guess, the artist if you're paying someone else to do art, but you're responsible to this designer. Like, even if you said, okay, contractually, I'll pay you this money up front, and then you've got to have some sorts of contracts where they are aware of the possibility that this might never be published, because maybe you get so far along the development state, they're like, wow, there's a lot more changes than I thought would be necessary for this game. Maybe you're not okay with that, or maybe you feel, oh, wait a minute, this game's a bit more expensive. I mean, things can change. And so, but when you get this game onto Kickstarter, the designer being involved, does that make you feel a lot more pressured?
I mean, that pressure comes from, it's self-built. It's whether you've set expectations correctly with the designer and with the rest of the team. It's how well you've communicated your vision for a game, because the same game from two different publishers is completely different. For example, Subterra, which is published by Inside the Box Board Games, was pitched to us at the same time, and we competed to license and publish that game. And 100%, if I published it, it would have been less successful, because I had this vision of Victorian explorers doing, lo-fi spelunking, and what ended up was it was like a more like a sleek kind of modern horror like thing with a lot more like relevant cultural references, let's say. um and yeah, like and I know designers who their games have come out and been hugely successful, and they've still been disappointed with it because it wasn't what they actually set out to do. And it's like a two-way street, right? The designer's got to say, like, I think this is my vision for this game, this is what I think it represents, this is what I want to achieve with it as like an artistic statement. Sometimes designers don't have that, that's fine. And then the publisher needs to say, this is what I want to do with it and why.
Hmm.
I'm trying very carefully to think of examples without
Offending
spoiling
anyone.
without spoiling secrets. But yeah, like so like for example, and those visions can change as well, like as time goes on. So for example, we have games that we have signed, and through the development process, as we've sought different opinions on, sometimes like our vision is wildly different from the get-go. Like we take a game and then we say, okay, this is cool, but we want to use this as a base engine for a legacy miniatures game. And the designer says, "Whoa, what the hell? I don't know how to do one of them." Um, and and then maybe you go into the development process, and then the design gets critiqued by lots of different people, and you start thinking, oh, maybe this is better off as like a small box budget thing. And it's just communication throughout that entire process, of like, because it's the expectations are what breed disappointment ultimately if they're misaligned. And yeah, like I say, at the same time, you need to be clear that, hey, we might publish this and no one likes it, despite best
Hmm.
intentions. It might go on Kickstarter and no one will back it. But obviously, the
And
nice thing,
everyone wants it to be successful. I mean, if a
yeah,
publisher signs something up, of course they want it to be successful. And in a way, like that's why I would I I wouldn't like consider something signed unless I had like an advance, even if
mm,
it's a relatively small number. And I think like you know, normally what I think is the kind of standard for a smallish publisher is about 500 quid to kind of get as an advance. But if it's like a bigger game, if it's a bigger publisher, you might get a bit more. But like it kind of shows that okay, we are serious about making it. And it's
yeah,
kind of saying, okay, we've got a stake. We at least if this advance is not discernible. And I mean, the big benefit of both from the public's perspective and from the designer's perspective is development. Ideally, I mean, even if it's product developments like Yogi, the fact that they managed to get plastic cards that are literally waterproof. And I've heard stories of at least two other people. So I'm not no longer the only one who's played it in a wet environment, if you know what I mean. Someone else said, "Yeah, I played Yogi Guru in the swimming pool, and cards stuck to my back." That was
that's
actually someone
great.
crucial, the artist. But there's one other person who also talks about it, and it's like this little card tray, but also like when you've got something where you're changing the theme, where you're tweaking it. How important do you think the second opinion is? Second perspective.
I mean, I've increasingly put more and more value on it, as I've seen how it can change things. And we now have like uh, we have a couple people, almost full time working for us, just like developing ideas and giving feedback and just being there to say like, not even sometimes to critique, but just to be like, I'm not that excited about this yet.
Hmm.
How do we get there as a team that we're all like, okay, yeah. And it makes it so much more rewarding when you can get, 5 people excited about working on a single idea and being invested in it, than when it's just one or two. Because the burden of proof is so much higher. And you get so many more ideas and so many things that just help elevate it, because ultimately like a game has to be impressive on like a hook, aspect, on like a single like pillar, like this is why this game needs to be in the world, and really believing in that. But also just like the little things along the way. Like people enjoy Den Breakfast, and they tweet or mention us on Facebook quite often just because the inlay is a score track, and that I took the time to measure out like how much gutter was needed to make sure all of the tiles were punched through so that you could just open it and play it immediately without having to like prepare things. And it's just working out like, yeah, like what's meaningful to
And what can we
your
add to the
audience.
thing? And I think that for sure, with more eyes on the thing, you can pay attention to more details. I think by being a publisher rather than a self-publisher, it is about that ability to specialize. And yeah, it is definitely time for us to recap, unfortunately. We talked about exploring space together, about Solkin, about multiple folk coming over to buy the thing potentially, or when is it okay? Maybe publishing, maybe it's not all about money. And ultimately, you do need quality, but do things that maybe don't end up in money, because not everything should be for money. And he talks about the joy of collaboration, that you can't make enough good things in a year, that you want to have more designs, and that obviously helps you get into distribution. We talked about sex-based games. Matt Fantastic here come together, and also I think Bruno Fiduti did
Yeah.
Kama we talked about when you're doing it yourself, just having that, is it good enough? How receptive are you to failure? How receptive are you to being called out? And maybe people were happy to upset you. You need to have these people around you to challenge you. And that's kind of my biggest takeaway. That's even if you're self-publishing, even if you don't have another proper stakeholder as such, do try to surround yourself with people who are actually willing to challenge you, other designers, and in proper protospiel or gatherings
Yeah.
where it's like proper gamers, or like just show it to families. Don't be like your family, but show it to other families. Go to the pub if it's a party game,
People
and
who
maybe not right now.
care about your success,
I'm not
really.
advocating that people in the UK go out right now. In New Zealand, it's fine apparently, but in the UK, don't go
Stay
out. So
inside. Yeah.
yeah, but about specializing, asking for help, knowing your limits, but knowing your value. Because by virtue of me saying, hey, I want someone else to do that bit, maybe that's also saying that my time has value. About being open to it, enjoying the passion. It's not just about the absolute worth of something, it's about the contextual worth. What can I bring to it? It's about matching the games and the audience that you can reach. It's about diversifying the catalog, about partnering with other folk, other stakeholders, other publishers in other territories when you're localizing. And it all comes down to communication. That's what I've realized more than
Yep.
anything. It's about communicating and being challenged.
Yep.
Do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, find people, whether they are paid employees or friends or peers, who care about your success, and know that at least in this industry, more people are out to help you than are out to hurt you. That even if you don't necessarily do what everyone tells you, their opinions have value and are worth taking home and thinking about. They're friends.
Yay.
They're friends.
They're friends for everyone. And if you want to find out more from, I'm going to just, hopefully the YouTube links will not be great. They're not cut too much. If you go onto YouTube, or if you're watching on Facebook, then the links will be in the main description. If you are on Twitch, then I am just sharing the links right now, and talk through where you would like to be found.
Please go to my website, which is braincrackgames.com, and buy my games, buy our games, so that we can continue to feed our child. And when you buy the games, not if, take pictures with them, show them to your friends, tell other people online why you enjoy them. Find the small wonders in your life, You can see in the top right there, there's a little store button. That's what you want to click, and then you want to get your wallet out and pick. We've got something for everyone. Dead and breakfast if you want like a little tile laying experience. Got Farsight if you like big plastic robots. Mind Out if you like spelunking, and gems. There's plastic gems. Downsize is not currently available. Everyone bought it. And Ragusa in Venice if you like puzzly playset Euro games with cute pieces and candy-colored wood components. And then all the other stuff if you want updates. And when we have new things to sell or sales.
And if you want to check me out, I am stuffbybez.com, stuffbybez.bigcartel.com, where you can buy my stuff, twitter.com/stuffbybez, where I share a lot of information about stuff, instagram.com/stuffbybez, where I sometimes share pictures that's particularly nice, twitch.tv/stuffbez is the best place to follow my streaming, because there's more conversation here, com/thingsbybez is a thing, and stuffbybez@gmail.com if you wish to get in touch via email. And here is the great. Yeah, I'm Bez. I know Xates has been totally sarcastic, but yeah, who is Bez? I am someone who I'm best known for Yogi. I have a game signed up called Seize the Power with Inside the Box, which is about negotiation, discrimination, and subjugation of power. And yeah, I'm setting up a thing in a couple of weeks that I'll talk about in a minute. But first, I want to thank you, everyone. I want to thank you, everyone who's watching. I see that there's people watching everywhere. I see that there's a bunch of people watching on Twitch, and I see that there's someone watching on Facebook and people watching on YouTube. Thank you, everyone who's been watching. Thank you for putting in the questions, and I want to say thank you very much. And most importantly, thank you. And most importantly, thank you to Lewis.
Me.
No, you're awesome. Well, we can all be awesome. Hey.
We can all be good.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone. Oh, yeah, and I'm going to point out that Alan has 4 letters in their name because Alan likes being mentioned. So, sure, whatever. Now, I want to say over to you. What are you up to? You can share only if you want to. Something you're looking forward to, hopes and ambitions. Share anything, whether it's exciting or trivial or important or just fun. Do you have something that's on your mind?
Yeah. My toilet's broken.
Oh, man.
I got to go fix that because it was broken and then I fixed it and broke another thing because it was old.
Oh, no.
So now I have a replacement gasket for the bottom of the cistern to go and fit and get very wet in the process. Probably.
I don't even understand what those words mean. You don't have to explain them right now.
That's
but
cool.
I'm just going to wish you luck, and that sounds like a good hope and ambition to have a working toilet. And to all those people out there who already have working toilets, cherish your toilets is what I'm hearing.
Cherish your toilet, yeah, especially if you have IBS, because repairing a toilet when you have IBS is like disarming a suicide jacket on a friend. Like it's you have to put your heart and soul into making that thing work, otherwise you will have lost everything.
Oh man.
Wow, that got dark quickly, didn't it? Anyway, I got to fix my toilet today. What are you doing, Bez?
What am I doing today? I'm going to I don't know. You know what? I'm going to double check my thing. I'm going to try and catch up with Twitter a wee bit because there's some conversations going on. Lots of people are recommending bans, starting with I or you. The LDEC Twitter is now going with photos that Chris has taken. Chris might not be in those photos, but there are photos that Chris has done that's going up on the @LDEC. I should put that on my thing of links, but I can only have 200 characters. But anyway, what I do want to chat about is the Bez and Friends Game Day, which is in 2 weeks exactly. It will be starting in about half an hour in 2 weeks' time. So basically, the idea is that on Saturday, the 17th of October, I will have 4 games that I've kind of handpicked. I'm going to admit, like, one of them is partially because I've been working with Isaac Shalev on Q4U. But then the other 3, yes, I'm on friendly terms with everyone involved. And so Chris Bockley is joining us and presenting How Much Money, which is a game that I've just had a lot of fun with on stream. And I think it's just such a wonderful game for getting to know other folk. I've got Alan Paul coming to demo Ming Voyages, which Alan Paul was the co-designer of, along with Dave Mortimer. And it's a lovely 2-player asymmetric game. And because that's only for 2 players, I assume that's going to be going on for quite a bit of the day. And so if that's the kind of game you like, try that. And then we'll have Q4U, which is a game about language and amusing other people. And we'll have Emily and or Lewis, probably not and, it'll probably or.
It's an
it'll
or.
be
Yeah, one of us
Emily
will be
or
defending
Lewis.
baby.
Yeah.
Playing this
Showing
lovely
off.
game. Which you can play on Tabletopia now by yourself, if you so please. Or with friends for free, whenever. Or you can play it with us at Bez and Friends Game Day.
And if you wish to play it with us and learn directly from the publishers, and did you do any work on this game, like developing?
Yes. Yeah.
Because I was going to list you as a developer, but then, you know, Board Game Geek doesn't have any developer credits, and I looked into bullshits, and you chose not to credit yourself as developer.
Yeah, I didn't really think of it at that stage as developing, I suppose. We just made some quick changes with Rodrigo. He did the bulk of the work. He's a good boy.
Anyway, yeah, that's it. Does anyone else? Oh, so we've got Alan Oudson's learning some more solo RPGs.
Awesome. Tell me what solo RPGs. I want to know. I'm maybe making one.
Jay Foolsguard is still going to their mum's place and to... Oh, wait, sorry. Misread that. Going to their mum's place and doing yard work. It's next week, but they're still looking forward to it and excited about it. That's awesome. And I hope you have a wonderful time. And I guess because of the state of the world, you know, for the week or 2 before you go somewhere, if it's vulnerable people, sometimes you want to behave slightly differently. But yeah. And Alex's son's birthday is tomorrow. So we're going to have a lovely small party for him.
Happy birthday, Alex's son.
And speaking of solo RPGs, which apparently it's not only you, Lewis, who wants to try them out. It's Quill and Ironsworn.
So there you go. Down.
And also, we've got, so much stuff. A wonderful book called Wonder Book. That's beautiful. It's about creating imaginative fictions. That sounds lovely. Is that like a workbook? Is that... And Alan just says there's so many RPGs out there.
There are. Stay tuned at Braincrack Games for the Out Here coming out 2021. It's our first RPG.
So it says time for the long day of games. Back-to-back gaming events. Wow, that sounds awesome. And so, yeah. That sounds like everyone has things to look forward to. I hope even for those who haven't said anything, I hope you have something to look forward to, even if it's, you know what, I'm just thinking what I'm going to eat. I don't know yet. But maybe that's the beauty. Like, we don't have to decide right now. There's so many possibilities. It's like, you know, the final page of the final comic that Bill Watterson never made, Calvin and Hobbes, where it's just like Calvin and Hobbes going down into the snow, and it's figuratively and literally very blank white snow, like a blank page. And they say it's a wonder. I can't remember exactly what they say, but it's about, you know, just all the beautiful possibilities. And I think that's a nice thing. And so I don't know what I'm going to have for lunch / breakfast, but I'm going to enjoy it.
Yeah, you enjoy that. And if you don't know right now, you can just make yourself a green tea. Just figure it out later. It's fine.
Anyway, if you've enjoyed this, then share, spread the word. And tomorrow, if you want to know my future streams, look at stuffbez.com/streams. Tomorrow is going to be a solo episode where I am going to be talking about perfectionism, because I can't remember when I decided that that would be a topic that I really should talk about.
Make it
But
perfect.
no, I won't. That's the point. That's going to, like, if you want to too long didn't read, it's like basically nothing can be perfect outside of mathematical constructs. So yeah, perfection, not a great thing. So yeah, I'm going to chat about that. I might also chat a little bit about the streams. I might have like a slightly longer, quick, questionable questions than usual because it will be just me on my own. But interestingly, excitingly, I do want to say that I think I have someone scheduled for literally every day until the 1st of November.
Until the end of time.
And then I'm going to start having stuff with multiple people. So yeah, Sunday it's me talking about perfectionism, then miniature games with Glenn, then the benefits of the mundane with Mandela, then 7th, talking about interviewing with Chris Winterburn and all sorts of things. I'm really excited for the couple of weeks ahead. It's going to be some big changes in here. And yeah, for now, there's only one thing left to do. And I think that one thing left to do, everyone knows, is to say bye, 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 bye. This is a goodbye song. Bye, 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 bye. Thank you for watching along. Bye, 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 bye. This is the end of the show.
Bye, Alan.
Bye, 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 bye. And now it's time to go. Bye, 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 bye. This is the goodbye song. Bye, 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 bye. Thank you for watching along. Bye, 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 bye. This is the end of the show. Bye, 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 bye. And now it's time to go.
I don't want to go.
Bye-bye, everyone.